Welcome to another episode of the Chronic Comeback podcast. This week, I'm really happy and excited to have on the show Allison Rassp. So just to give you a bit of an introduction into Allison's story before we get into the podcast, in 2013, Allison suddenly developed a number of worrying symptoms, including weight gain out of nowhere, around 20 pounds, in fact, extreme fatigue, sleeping for 16 hours a day, her hair falling out, brain fog, and anxiety, depression, and a number of other symptoms. Finally, after 3 long years of searching, she was diagnosed with Hashimoto's disease. Here, Allison had two options. She could accept this diagnosis and give up and just accept that's how things were, or try and better her situation. Thankfully, she opted for the latter, and through diet and nutrition alone was able to reverse the large majority of her symptoms. Today, Allison's passion lies in helping others recover their health with her own business and community help with Hashimoto's. So, these are stories that I just love to hear. People who have gone through some really tough times, got through those times, and are now using their story to help others. And it's truly inspiring for me. And yeah, really excited for you to tell your story and have you on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
No worries. Cool. Well, let's go back to before 2013. What was life like then, health wise? Had you ever had any health issues? Were you, sometimes I have people on the show and they were quite a sickly child, and then other people were, the pinnacle of health, and then suddenly they were hit down by something. Which were you?
Yeah, I was pretty what you would consider healthy before. So I didn't. It felt like you wake up one day and you just don't feel like yourself anymore. And so for me, it felt like it kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah. Okay. And what were the? Was it just literally just one day? You suddenly just started getting symptoms, or was it just like one day you were like, "Wow, I've gained a little bit of weight, and I'm really tired," or was it just a lot more extreme than that? Can you talk us through what happened there?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think one of my first symptoms I would say was really bad anxiety. I mean, I was like diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorders, put on all these anxiety medications because I didn't know that there was something deeper going on. And then I think the next step was the weight gain. I started to when you take pictures over time and you start looking at pictures of yourself and you're like, wait a minute, because sometimes you don't even notice it like on your own body until you really look at it in a picture. And I was like, I just don't look the same. And so I think those were the first two kind of steps. And for me, it just kind of built over time. And
Mm.
then I think one day I just was like, something's not right. Like I felt awful. And then I had all that fatigue and was sleeping 16 hours a day. And so I think it's kind of for me been built over time and just kind of led up to everything
Mm.
coming down at once.
Yeah, and I guess the difficulty with the symptoms that you mentioned, like weight gain, fatigue, anxiety. If you say that to an average person on the street, they're just gonna they're not gonna see that as something like really extreme. They're seeing it as maybe something that's oh, you're just under some pressure. You've put on some weight, and I can see that in that situation, it would have been really difficult because there probably was a lack of understanding from other people, and that maybe then made you doubt yourself, which obviously happened if you then were on anxiety medication. Did that kind of thing happen? Was it difficult for you to believe that it was, you know, something more extreme because of that kind of reaction, or did you have that kind of reaction?
Yeah, I mean, I get the typical response from people around me saying like, "Oh, you just need to eat this way or you just need to do that." And I was like, "I'm eating healthy and I was exercising like crazy." Um and so yeah, I definitely heard all of the things, and cuz when that thing happens, like people just assume that you're not eating healthy or that you're not doing everything you can to like be healthy, but you are. So it can be very frustrating process when people around you don't understand and they don't get it. So
Yeah. And
definitely
so
been there.
in that 3 year period, what was the kind of, was there a low point for you in that time that you can remember and you're like, I can't get through this, like, or you having those kind of thoughts, or was that a continual like thought pattern?
Yeah, I mean, I think well, I didn't know what was going on with my body, so I didn't know like what to think. I was like, am I going to be like this forever? Is this something that's going to be the rest of my life?
Mm,
Am I never going to be able to figure out what's going on with me? I think all these questions kind of went through my head. And then once I got diagnosed, I think I kind of slipped into even more so of like, is this a forever thing? Like, is this going to be the rest of my life? Like what now? Right? We all go into that like worst case scenario in our minds of like,
mm,
what could possibly happen for the rest of our life with something like this. So yeah, I've definitely been in really dark places with it,
yeah.
especially at the very beginning of my journey, like pre-diagnosis, and then once I was diagnosed. So yeah, it's a really, really tough, frustrating process to be in.
And what was the process like to get to that diagnosis? Were you seeing doctor after doctor after doctor? Was it like a lot of online research? Could you talk us through that process?
Yeah, yeah. So, like so many people with Hashimoto's disease or thyroid imbalances, I went to my traditional, conventional Western doctor, and because I was having, all of these symptoms, and it was actually my hairdresser that told me to go get my thyroid checked because my hair was falling out like crazy, and so I asked my doctor and I said, I want to get this checked just to make sure everything's okay. And she was the one that was like, well, you probably just have anxiety, but we'll check it. And
Mm,
so they ran my thyroid, and she said that I had what's called subclinical hypothyroidism. She's like, you can take medication, you cannot take medication, it's up to you. And then that was it. And so I did that for probably a year. I felt awful still. It did not feel good. So I
mm,
came back and I did some research, came back, tried to ask for a different kind of medication. The doctor was so disrespectful to me and basically was like, that doesn't work. And just was so rude and dismissive. And so when I left that appointment that day, I was just like, this, there has to be another way. Like this cannot be what I have to go through.
mm,
I just knew. So that's when I started digging and digging and doing more research. And decided to just say like, what do I have to lose? Like I'm not getting any help from this other doctor. And yeah, so I made an appointment and was able to officially get diagnosed with Hashimoto's disease from an naturopathic doctor after years of not knowing what was going on. They didn't run the proper tests on me. So
wow. And so the minute you got that diagnosis, how did you feel?
I felt a mix of emotions like I feel so many people do. It's you feel relieved because you have an
Mm,
answer, but you also feel nervous and like what's next or what does this mean for me, and like how long is it going to take me to feel better? Am I ever going to feel better? So there's all these thoughts that kind of go through your mind of feeling like relieved that you have this answer, but then like there's just so much going through your head of like, what now?
Mm.
And so, yeah, it's a lot of different emotions kind of all wrapped up in one.
Yeah, because I was the same. Like when you're so relieved when you get a particular diagnosis or someone says this is what's causing this. But then I don't know if it's, I haven't done enough research into Hashimoto's. I don't know if it's the same. But when you're looking at most chronic illnesses and most things like Lyme disease or mold toxicity, some of the stuff that I've dealt with, you're just met with like a wall of negativity whenever you're going into Facebook or Google, and a lot of just it makes you build up a belief that life, you're never going to get your life back and there's not going to be an improvement there. Is it the same with Hashimoto's? Like, did you do that same thing where you kind of tried to do your own research and was met with that negativity?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you Google if you Google any chronic illness,
Yeah.
Hashimoto's, Lyme, all of it, I mean, you'll just see like it's looks like a death sentence for anybody, right? And so yeah, I went down the path, the rabbit hole of research, and it just like caused more anxiety,
Yeah.
and it's just yeah, there's so many different opinions out there. There's so many different things. And yeah, I definitely was met with a lot of different negativity. And
Yeah.
it's a lot. It can be very overwhelming.
I'd love to know how long it was before I started banning myself from Googling things. Like I used to type in my symptoms all the time, and I then just one day was like, why do I keep doing this? Like every single time I feel loads worse after I've done this. But yeah, I was doing it. I mean, it must have been a good few years before I finally banned myself from doing that. And yeah, it's not healthy. So after that point, you got your diagnosis, and obviously, I kind of skipped ahead, and ruined the ending, and said that you reversed a lot of your symptoms. But I'm sure that was a kind of a bit of a journey in itself. Could you talk us through, from diagnosis? Was the doctor that gave you the diagnosis, were they really helpful, or did you need to use other practitioners? Could you talk us through that?
Yeah, I mean, they were helpful in terms of, getting the diagnosis, and running some tests and things like that. But yes, I've had to see multiple doctors, and over time, throughout my journey, I just you learn to use your own body as a compass. And I found that I would just give my power away to the doctor, like expecting them to fix what was wrong. And at the end of the day, like it was my responsibility to do my own research and to figure out what was going on with my body. So yeah, I mean, I've gone through a couple different doctors, and I've learned over the years to advocate for what I need and ask for exactly what I need. So, um, even with really, really good doctors, I think it's still important as patients like that we go in knowing what we need, and knowing kind of what our expectations are, and really still holding ourselves responsible for our own healing at the same time. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's been a journey with doctors too, but I think the moment that I started empowering myself with this is my responsibility, a lot of it, then my body really started to heal. So,
And how long? So when did you start to realize that, or when did you start to make those changes in your diet? And what were those changes? And how long was that process before you actually started to feel some real difference?
yeah, I mean, I had already changed my diet. It was one of those people that was really diligent with it from the beginning. And so I saw immediate results in terms of my weight gain and everything like that with changing my diet. But I was still not really feeling great. So I knew there had to be deeper stuff. And of course, for many of us with Hashimoto's, a lot of it's stress related. So at the time I was teaching, I was an elementary school teacher, and anyone who's a teacher knows it's an incredibly stressful job. So so I think that was a huge contributor to me not totally feeling well. And I think over the years I've had just mold exposures and all of these things that I didn't realize that were just causing me to be so sick.
Mm.
And so yeah, it's been a journey, even just trying to figure out, like, beyond food, what's kind of been going on with my body, and
Yeah.
digging deeper into all the toxins and all the things going on with my gut.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's why I always say, like, food is a great starting point. It did a lot for me for the beginning, but there's so much other things to dig into,
Yeah.
beyond just the food.
Yeah.
Stress and toxins and all these other things.
Yeah, that's the practitioner I'm dealing with at the moment. Just says it's not one thing; it's all the things.
Hmm.
You've never just got that one thing. And I guess when someone gets like a diagnosis of Hashimoto's, they think, okay, well, if I just go after that, then I'll be better. But yeah, it's really interesting. What? So how? If you talk through the timeline of so in 2000. So in 2000, I guess it was 2016, you got the diagnosis. At what point were a lot of your symptoms reversed, and you were kind of, I guess, in a place where it wasn't dominating, every part of your day?
Yeah, I mean, I think when I left teaching, it definitely my body started to heal. Stress was such a huge factor for me.
Mm.
And we don't often realize how much it's really impeding our health. And that's why, I always use the quote, "You can't heal in the same environment that you got sick in." And my symptoms started a lot when I started teaching. So I
Mm.
think for me, I had to really get clear on what were my priorities, and where my stress was coming from, and all of these things. Um, so yeah, I've just had to learned how to take better care of myself, and things like that. And so I think I finally started to heal in, like, 2018 is when I left the teaching profession, and
Mm.
uh, started to dig a little deeper into some gut stuff that was going on with me, and found out got some results back from that. So there's just been a lot more digging, um, over the last couple years, that's I feel like kind of gotten me over this, like, little plateau, I guess you could say, of
Yeah.
healing.
Yeah. And how did it, I mean, going back to kind of in those, the darker times, how did it affect like the relationships in your life and like your social life? Did that did any of that change? Yeah. What impact did that have?
Oh yeah, like, socially everything changed. I mean, I don't drink alcohol. I changed that, and it's not a big deal to me anymore. So, but it is such a social aspect of
Oh
our
yeah.
lives. And so, a lot of my friendships have shifted, and a lot of things, like, have changed. And with family dynamics, my family is used to it now, but when you're changing your food and you're doing all these changes, so it takes other people some time to adapt to this new way of living,
Mm.
and learning how to accommodate you in a way where you can still honor your needs,
Yeah.
um, and be healthy. And so I think it's been an education part on everybody's level of learning,
Yeah.
um, this new way of being when you have a chronic illness. It's a lifestyle change. So
Yeah. The
yeah.
the the frustrating part, and I'm going through it right now because I'm doing a protocol, which means I have to. It's pretty much like paleo, but everything has to be organic, and everything has to be grass fed or wild if it's meat or fish. So everyone, all of my friends and my family just think I'm this like I'm doing this, life. They get that I've got a chronic health issue, but because they don't truly get it, they just think I'm just being this awkward, awkward guy who's going through a phase and who's, just being a bit weird. And like my mum would always make like comments of just, he's still doing that weird thing, he's still being strange. And it's just like, I wish I could go in there and eat a burger and, drink a few beers, like, and don't care about it. Like, I wish that's the case. And it's just, I find it frustrating that they don't get that I'm doing it because there's something seriously wrong, rather than I'm just being this guy who's doing it for his health. I wish I was that guy, because that guy's a bit more, preventative as opposed to reactive. But did you get that kind of response? Does that kind of resonate with you, that kind of response?
Yeah, absolutely. I went through all of that with family. Like they think it's just a phase and it's here, you'll be over it. And yeah, I definitely have gone through that. And it's the one thing that's helped me is just, leading by example and just staying true to yourself and
Yeah.
knowing what you can and cannot eat, and having those firm boundaries with yourself. And I think other people start to respect it when you own it too. Is what I always tell my clients, is like, when you own that part of yourself, that's like, I'm doing this is for myself, this is for my body. I think that, like, I've noticed other people start to accept that and just are okay with it too. Because I used to get the like, oh, I'm so sorry, or like when you go somewhere and you can't eat something or for whatever
Yeah.
reason,
Yeah.
and I'm like, no, don't be sorry, I'm totally happy. And I think it's just like people like automatically go to want to sympathize with you, but it's
Yeah.
like, it's okay.
Yeah.
So
That's actually really important, because when someone says I'm sorry in that situation, and you entertain that, which I've definitely done, and then you're playing into that victim role, and you then start to believe that you are the victim, because deep down, I guess, you are like a little bit, well, I am certainly a little bit annoyed when I'm at a restaurant and I can't eat most of the things on the menu. But that's really cool that you're like, you're actually putting that boundary up to say, no, don't worry about me. I know I'm good. I'm doing this for me. I get a lot of that with drinking alcohol. I don't, I mean, you're from California. I'm pretty sure people still drink a lot of alcohol in California, but in the UK, it's a way of life. And because it's so bloody cold here, everyone has to drink loads. So trying to be in a position where you don't drink is quite difficult. And so I'm always like making an excuse. Like when I'm saying, oh, I'm not drinking, I'm like, oh, I'm not drinking because of this, I'm not drinking because of that. I won't ever just say, oh, I don't drink anymore, because I feel like it puts across this like negative connotation, and there's people might think that I'm this boring guy. And then I met this guy recently, and he just said, he was this young guy actually. It made me feel quite foolish, because he was like probably about 8 years younger than me, and he was just like, yeah, I don't drink. I made a decision a year ago, it just wasn't for me. And he just owned it so much that I was like, I need to just do that. Like, I don't care. Like, I need to just say, yeah, I don't drink anymore. And if people don't like it, then they're probably not the right people in my life. So yeah. So did you drink much alcohol before, or was that quite a difficult, was that an easy transition for you to make?
yeah, I was never like a huge drinker before, so it
Yeah.
wasn't that hard of a transition.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, it was really the social aspect of it. So yeah, it was not cultural, like I'm sure what you've had to experience.
Yeah.
So I wasn't a huge drinker, so it wasn't that hard. But it is like people, it's funny because when you say you don't drink nowadays, people like either they think you're an alcoholic or
Yeah.
they think you have something wrong with you.
Yeah.
Um, or I think there's a way you can say it where sometimes I've noticed people will even feel bad about themselves drinking. So they'll be
Yeah.
like, oh, well, I really don't drink that much, or something like
Yeah.
that when you share that you don't drink. So it's kind
Yeah.
of interesting, like how other people will respond to that comment.
Yeah. Well, I think it's probably karma, to be honest, because I was, I would always be the one like going up and getting everyone, another round, let's have another round. I would always be saying, oh, you're not drinking, come on. So now I'm, Karma's a bitch. So you talked about anxiety, depression, that side of things, and that was what you first noticed. And so I do want to touch upon that because I think it's an important part to recognise. You've mentioned the physical stuff you did with the diet, and then there's some medication there. What about the mental side of things? And like, when did you realize, or when did you look to address that, if you did, and how did you do that?
Like the emotional side of things.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's always been an evolving thing. I think still evolving with it all.
Mm,
I've come definitely a long way, but with chronic illness, there's things to look at beyond just. I think when we look at the emotional health, we also have to look at past traumas and things like that. So there's a lot of digging beyond just like the food and the supplements and all these things when it comes to our emotional health, and they're really helpful for all of that. But I typically find that most of us with a chronic illness have some type of childhood trauma involved in that. So, just getting help around that, and using modalities that help you to get into your physical body, that's been really helpful for me. Using things like emotional freedom technique,
yeah.
EMDR, all of these things that are really helpful, like, getting into your physical body,
Mm,
because we store all of those emotions in there, and it can be really hard for me to fully heal if we don't kind of address that emotional side of things as well.
yeah. No, I did just want to ask you about that because I think it's very rare. I mean, I actually can't think of an episode that I've done so far where someone hasn't gone down a little bit more of a spiritual path, as well as went in their recovery, because it's almost like that is as much, or if not more important than the physical stuff they did. And if they hadn't done the emotional stuff as well, then that wouldn't have worked for them. And I'm definitely, it's taken me a long while to kind of reach that conclusion. For me, I banged on the physical door for a very long time. And do you find that with your clients? Do you find the ones that are willing to are more open to that side of things recover and quicker, or get better quicker?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, the ones that are open to looking at that side of it, definitely, I mean, they all have to go hand in hand, right? With all the physical stuff. And yeah, I definitely think the recovery process can accelerate when we are open and willing to look at that aspect. It's the not fun aspect, right? Like, we just want to be fixed. We just want a quick fix, instant gratification. But this
Mm,
stuff has been living with us for so long. And after doing this work for so long, too, it's like you not only notice your own behavior patterns, but you notice it in your clients, too. And so I think those who are open to, looking at their own patterns and making changes to take better care of themselves. It's a lot of unlearning and things that we have to do that were not always modeled for us and things like that. So I
mm.
think, yeah, just taking a look at all those things can definitely accelerate healing for sure.
And so is your main profession now, I said that you started up your own business. Is your main profession, hope with Hashimoto's, like having your clients, is that your bit, that's your business, that's what you do 100% of the time?
Yes, yes.
Awesome.
I do a lot of group coaching and I love it.
Awesome. And that's when did you start doing that? Was that in 2018, 2019?
Yes, so like 2018, 2019 is when I started to do, yeah, all the group coaching, and I do one-on-one coaching still, for those who want more of a personalized support and things like that. And my my course, because I'm a former teacher, so I love to educate and teach people how to heal their bodies. So
Mm.
yeah, it's all so fun for me.
I just think it's so interesting when you look at like a story like like yourselves and like yourself, and I can see it kind of in a similar way with mine and other people that I've spoken to, that if you just looked at your life without chronic illness, you know, being a teacher, you know, going down that path, continuing on down that path. I mean, do you think, let's say, chronic health hadn't been in the picture, would you have continued on in the, you know, worked your way up the ladder in the teaching world and continued on with that, do you think?
That's a great question. I don't know. I don't
Mm.
know how what my life would have looked like
Yeah,
had I not had this happen. But it's almost like this silver lining, and there's a blessing to all the craziness that happens. I almost feel like, you know, my diagnosis happened for a reason, and that this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing right now. And
yeah,
I love what I'm doing. I feel so
yeah,
grateful every day. I'm still teaching, so just adults this time. But
yeah,
so I don't know. I don't know what I would have been doing, but I'm just so grateful now that I get to do what I get to help people and
yeah.
feel better. It's the best feeling in the world.
Yeah, and but I guess my point around that was that you could have, let's say, you had carried on in your teaching career, you know, in that stressful environment. Probably at some point you were going to have to face some demons and some you know, some stress related issues by being in such a stressful job. And it's just almost, as you say, it's an absolute blessing that it happened maybe earlier on in your life, so you could, you know, you had the opportunity to get out at that time and go and now do something that you absolutely love. I know for me, like, I would have continued on in like a city job, just never believed that I could have been an entrepreneur, but, you know, working for myself, which is what I'm doing now. And it's chronic health that's forced me to go and do that, and which is amazing. And I mean, did you ever see yourself as an entrepreneur, someone who would run their own business?
Yeah, it's funny. I kind of always knew I like had a thing for entrepreneurship. I was always the one watching Shark Tank and like loved all those shows. And when I was teaching fifth grade, we did a whole unit on entrepreneurship, and I would get so into it. And so I always feel like I had it in me a little bit to do it, and I wouldn't trade it for the world now. I definitely love it. So
Awesome.
yeah, and chronic illness, like you said, it throws us into it, but
Mm.
having our own schedule is probably the best thing for someone with with a chronic illness. So
Yeah, definitely. And what would you say? So obviously, you know, we talked about that being a blessing. What are the other like positives you feel you can take from, you know, the, you know, that sliding doors moment, I guess, of like you getting chronic health issues, getting Hashimoto's, the way in which your life is now? Like how would you say it's better than, you know, it potentially could have been? Like, what are the positives that you can take out of it?
out of getting the diagnosis.
Yeah, I mean, where it's led you to being today, I guess, because it's difficult to be really grateful once you're, you know, when you're in the thick of it and you're, you know, you're going through everything. But now, you know, with hindsight, and now you're on the other side of it. How is your life better as a result of, you know, of what you've been through?
Yeah, it's so much better. I mean, I recently just went through like a huge flare up. And it kind of just reminded me of everything that I had at the beginning of my journey. I had a horrible mold exposure about a month and a half ago, and I gained all my weight back. I had all my rashes come back. Like all of these symptoms resurfaced like a month and a half ago, and I had all these flashbacks of like when I was newly diagnosed and how that felt. And I almost felt like it had that happened for a reason too, because it like gave me perspective again of
Mm,
like things can always kind of come back, but the our bodies are super resilient and they always are trying to be healthy. So I feel like my life has changed in that like I know what my body needs to be healthy. And this time I trusted that it would get healthy again, whereas before
mm,
I really didn't know what was going on or how fast things would happen. But the second time it flares up and it happens, it's kind of just restored my faith again, and just our bodies are truly amazing. So
yeah.
um, I think my life has changed in that I just trust my body, and I trust that I know what feels good and what doesn't feel good anymore. And so I think you get to that point where you really learn what feels right and what doesn't, and it's a really good feeling and a good place to be
Mm.
in.
Out of interest, how long did it take you to kind of recover, recover that? Because you seem great now. So like, it was only a month and a half ago. Like how soon were you able to kind of start to get better from that?
Yeah, I would say about a month after moving out of that situation,
Mm.
I immediately though started taking care of myself, and like I feel grateful because I knew kind of what to do. I have a friend who had a similar situation who was helping me through a lot of it too, and um, so yeah, I mean, my body just really bounced back pretty quickly. I feel so grateful because I know that's not the case for everybody.
Yeah.
Um, but I think it's also like I'm one of those like nerds that I'm super dedicated. So when I like put my mind to something, I like stick to something because I want especially when it comes to my health, like I'm just like not a no nonsense kind of person.
Mm.
So I'll do anything to make things change. So I was very, very strict, with my diet and with detox modalities and all of these things over the last month, and it's definitely paid off. So I think that's the one thing is consistency is huge.
Yeah. I just think it's really interesting that within a month you were able to recover so much of what you lost, whereas previously when you got sick, because you didn't have the right attitude towards it, I guess, the right belief, the right tools and the knowledge, then it took you years. And I guess to anyone listening to this, it can be, I guess, that when you've got the right tools and the right people supporting you and the right, particularly the right attitude, because I think it's, that's something I've been battling with for a long time, just like believing that, I'm on the right path and, I'm going to be okay. And having that belief is really important. Yeah, it's so cool that, so yeah, as you say, that's being able to recover from that second time is better, because you haven't got that fear. If it does come back, then you know what to do, again, which is nice. What would you say to someone at the moment, in their darkest hour, right now, in the depths of chronic illness, can't see a way out, and doesn't know how they're going to carry on tomorrow? Like, what's your advice to them right now? I guess more from a mindset point of view.
Yeah, that's such a good question. I would say like don't give up hope. I would say, and there's so many resources and support out there. Like get help. I think a lot of times we think that we can just do things on our own, and we, you know, try to go down the Google rabbit hole and do everything. And I think the biggest piece of advice would be just to get support wherever you can from professionals that can help you. Finding community, find people who do get you, because there's going to be a lot of people who don't. um, I think that's really huge, and having those two components is getting support and finding your tribe, finding people who do understand what you're going through, because it can feel like a very lonely journey
Yeah.
without having that support system.
Awesome, cool. Well, look, I think that's a really good place to draw the podcast to a close. Before we go, could you just, if people wanted to reach out to you to connect with you at all, how would they best do that?
Yeah, I spend most of my time on Instagram at Hope with Hashimoto's,
Hmm.
and you can find all my information at hopewithhashimotos.com as well.
Cool. It's a really cool, handle that you've got there. And also, like, I was just surprised that you must have been surprised that was still available when you were looking at that, and as a domain name as well.
Yeah, yeah, I was definitely grateful, because I feel like the word hope is exactly what we all need with this disease. So
Yeah,
it's
definitely. Definitely. Cool. Well, look, thank you so much for coming on. I know a lot of people, either with Hashimoto's or other chronic health issues would have got so much from that. And I personally did. So thank you very much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me.